You call out a lot of influencers who are not natty, who are taking steroids. How common is it that this happens?
I think it's way more common than people even think. It's extremely prevalent. And the reason for that is because it's still not socially acceptable. And people who take steroids, they don't want people to misjudge them or to think that they're somehow bad. So rather than just being honest, they just hide because people are going to be critical if they admit the truth.
Yeah. What percentage of people would you say are on steroids? When you see them on Instagram, they're lifting and they look just massive.
I would say almost every single person that you think is on steroids is. So probably 3/4 of the people that you would say, yeah, he's probably on steroids, there most likely are.
Who is the biggest fake natty you exposed that shocked everybody?
That shocked people? I would say probably that guy that just came back after a 2-year hiatus of doing David Dobrik. David Dobrik.
Yeah.
I made a video on that. It got like maybe 500,000 views. I'm like, this guy's not natural because he doesn't look like me. And it's like, no, you could achieve that body natural. I'm like, yes, but he didn't. So typically, it's not the guys that are most jacked. It's the guys with average physiques. I'm like, that guy's average physique was not achieved natural because most people who take steroids don't actually look like they do.
So what do you think? Yeah, I'm so curious because David Dobrik to me seems like that would be totally achievable if you do nothing but eat really good, weight lift every day, have a trainer, have a nutritionist. Like, why couldn't you achieve that physique?
You absolutely could if you had elite level genetics. And see, that's the problem. I'll show a photo of me when I'm like 21 and I'll say, you know, that was natural. I did 42 shows natural. And they'll say, well, your physique is better than him. And you say you're natural. So why didn't he do it? I'm like, because his genetics aren't as good. You take the most elite genetics in the world and you train 100% natural compared to a guy on every steroid that you can think of who has horrible genetics. The elite natural looks way better every single time.
How confident are you that he's on something? Like a scale of 1 to 10. 10
Probably
being like I'm
about an
100%, 80%.
What
About
would
an
you
8 out of
suggest
10.
he's on?
Maybe some SARMs, HRT, peptides. There's so many things that, for example, if you have millions of dollars in access to money, and if you're not like against using performance enhancing drugs, then why shouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't he use something? Like, it's not illegal, so why wouldn't he do it? There's nothing illegal about taking a peptide. So if he was taking, for example, ipamorelin or sermorelin or IGF-1, IGF-2, MGF, there's so many different peptides that could help him build more muscle, then why wouldn't he take it? And a lot of fake natties, they'll say, I can prove it. They'll take their testosterone test and they'll post their testosterone levels. I'm like, yeah, great. You're not on testosterone. You didn't prove anything else. There's so many other things you could take. Growth hormone is another example. SARMs, like Osterine, you probably have heard of that, maybe RAD140 or LGD, some of these things. So there's so many other things that can give you an advantage. Same thing as guys like The Rock. Does anyone think The Rock is natural? And why should he be? Why would he be in his 50s? Now, I would argue that he's probably on a lot of products, not just HRT. But when you think, why wouldn't somebody take a product to help them get better? If it's going to make them feel better, look the better, be healthier, why wouldn't they do it?
How do you know David had bad genetics? What if he just had good genetics, but his entire life just never worked out and he was eating too much?
If you have great genetics, even if you don't try, you're going to look somewhat okay, somewhat respectable, and you're going to respond very quickly.
What about Logan Paul?
Logan Paul, I would say he's not natural.
Pretty confidently?
I would confidently bet that he's not, yes.
What would you say are the safest PEDs to use and the most dangerous PEDs?
I would say the safest would be testosterone with the prescription from a doctor, which is a performance. It's because it's testosterone, and you could argue it's bioidentical, whatever. It's like testosterone. I'm on HRT, prescribed by my doctor. I get my blood work done multiple times a year. I feel very healthy. But if I push that dose higher than the doctor recommends, that's when it becomes dangerous. But at the dose that's recommended, I think it's very healthy. That to me would be probably one of the safest. But of course, if you just use it on your own, not very safe. The safest oral, probably Anavar in terms of side effects, but anything at a high dose is not going to be very safe. Other performance enhancing drugs, I could argue, is Cialis a performance enhancing drug? It's not banned by WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Agency, but I think it has a performance enhancing effect. And should it be called a drug? Well, it's debatable. Caffeine is a drug. Without question, it was banned by WADA. So in the Olympics years ago, you couldn't use caffeine above a certain level. You fail a drug test. It was considered cheating. But like we have iced coffee tower. If you drank 5 cups of coffee, is that performance enhancing? I would say absolutely. So is that healthy? A society allows us to think that some drugs are okay and some are not. What about, you might have heard the Wolverine stack, BPC 157 or TB 500. These are peptides that promote healing. You heal probably twice as fast as not using them. So if you're an MMA fighter and you hurt your elbow, your wrist, whatever, and you can heal faster, That's going to allow you to get back to training and you can have more of a performance enhancing benefit. Then we have, for example, peptides that increase your IGF-1 levels so you can build more muscle, have a muscle look a little bit fuller, recover faster. And so those are fairly safe, but depending on the country, they speak against it.
So if you had two twins, one is natural, one took peptides or steroids, over 3 years, what sort of difference would you see between the two, assuming they're working out and eating the exact same?
Oh my goodness. So it could be 30 pounds of muscle in 3 years, the difference.
Wow.
HRT alone, typically, and I've coached hundreds of people to do this, usually around 8 to 10 pounds of muscle in a year from HRT. That's at doctor prescribed levels, not like crazy doses, not 500 or 1,000 milligrams, just a typical dose. If I stopped my HRT, I think I would lose 10 pounds of muscle in a year. If I went completely cold turkey, no more steroids, which is testosterone. If I stopped and my dose is 140 milligrams a week, I would probably lose 10 pounds in a year. And if you started, you probably, you're a little bit, it's kind of a percentage. What's your body weight? Like 140, 150 pounds?
130, 135.
So probably not going to be 8 to 10, but I bet you gain 6, 7 in a year at a low dose prescribed by a doctor. So significant. Peptides would be less.
What if your testosterone is already high and you just bump it up even more? Does that make a difference?
You would still be able to build more muscle, but of course it would have to be at a higher level. So if let's say you're pushing 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, which would be significantly high, way above average, and you take steroids at low doses, and it's only enough to keep you at 1,000, it's not going to make as big a difference as you bump it up to 1,500. But it will still make a difference because the normal person's testosterone levels go through highs and lows. So for example, if you don't sleep for a day or two because you're stressed out, you're working, your testosterone levels go down, you're not going to build as much muscle. Versus somebody like me, my testosterone levels are always high because I'm on exogenous testosterone prescribed by my doctor.
When did you first get introduced to steroids?
I was in my early 30s and I had already competed 42 times naturally. I started competing in the 140s and by the end of it, I was competing in the 170s. And I wanted to be an IFBB pro. And so after a few years, I was very, very much declining in my gains. I would say I averaged probably 3 pounds of muscle a year for a very long time. Then the last year or so, I was like, I don't think I'd put on any muscle, maybe 1 pound. And at that point, I won the Canadian Drug Tested National Championships. There was no pro cards for that. And I said, I want to be an IFBB pro. So I started taking steroids. 3 years later, I was a pro. Probably put 25 pounds of muscle difference, I would say, between the two looks. I do a lot of before and after transformation. I'll show them on my wall. It's like, this is when I was natural at my best. This is me enhanced. There's hardly any difference. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much on stage. It's night and day difference. Like if you put on even 15 pounds of muscle, you would look like you're on steroids for sure.
In the untested category, any bodybuilder, would you say they're all doing performance enhancing drugs?
Untested, I would say probably 90% are using steroids. Now, I was a guy that was competing in untested bodybuilding shows and I was winning, but I had amazing genetics. And I don't say to brag, I'm basically saying, hey, I'm taking the power away from me. I was lucky that my genetics allowed me to look a certain way that even at 155 pounds, I looked better than a lot of the guys who weighed 200 pounds.
It's interesting. Ronnie Coleman said the exact same thing, that he credits a lot of his ability to pure genetics, that he is like the best of the best of the best.
Yes.
Combine steroids with that and you could beat the top in the world.
And he competed for a long time without
very long time.
usage.
I believe him. And I would say me at my best with steroids at my best would get destroyed by him 100% natural. I fully believe that. There's another example, like Chris Bumstead without steroids. Now, unfortunately, he started at 18, which is sad to see because he's such a young guy. And unfortunately, he's such a great guy, but he's a negative influence to the people of the world who saw him at 18 take steroids, because who doesn't want to be Chris Bumstead? Or like Sam Sulek. So these guys started so young, but a Chris Bumstead with no steroids would still look ridiculous. And so imagine he had never taken steroids and been famous and been a natural guy. Almost everyone would look at him and say, you're on steroids. I would do a natty or not on him and I would say, let's see. Show me him at 15, 16, 17, 18. And if he had that normal progression, I'd say this guy's natural. But if you all of a sudden see that 1 year where they put on 20, 30 pounds, it's like, okay, now I got you.
Now, one of the biggest traps with healthy snacks is just how misleading they are. A lot of protein bars, I've noticed, still spike your blood sugar, contain hidden sugars, or contain ingredients you can't even pronounce. And then you're hungry again an hour later. That's why we love the sponsor of this clip, War on Sugar. They make a bar that actually keeps your blood sugar stable, tastes great, and contains ingredients that you recognize.
War on Sugar bars are amazing. They're designed specifically to avoid insulin spikes, and their sweetness comes from monk fruit, which is exactly how they stay sweet without without getting that blood sugar response. Plus, they use healthy fats and natural fiber to slow digestion and keep energy steady. And the result is amazing. It's no spike, no crash, and no craving afterwards, just clean, sustained energy that actually lasts.
And the ingredients list is refreshingly simple. No sugar alcohols, no preservatives, no natural flavors. Everything comes from real nuts, real fruits, and real cocoa.
So whether you're watching your blood sugar, eating low carb or keto, traveling or training, or you just need a grab-and-go bar that actually fills you up, War on Sugar is that bar.
They've got great flavors like lemon blueberry, peanut butter pistachio, and chocolate peanut butter crunch.
Seriously, guys, I highly recommend it. Just go to waronsugar.com and use code ICED10 for 10% off your first box. Once again, that is waronsugar.com. ICED10 is the code for 10% off your first box. I have a problem. When I eat, I spike and I crash and I cannot focus. I do not suffer that with War on Sugar bars, so I highly recommend it. Thank you so much to War on Sugar for sponsoring this clip.